Hello, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and I just want to welcome everybody to the webinar today with Agnes. So Agnes is a great friend. We've known each other for many, many years in the SharePoint community, and she's going to be talking to us about something she's very knowledgeable on, and that is SharePoint search. So just really wish Agnes all the best with the webinar, and I want to point out if anybody has any questions that they want to ask during the webinar, if you can hold them until towards the end, because we're going to have plenty of time where you can raise your hand and ask the question from Agnes. So if you raise your hand using the software, I'll be able to unmute you and you'll be able to ask the question. If you're a little bit shy, feel free to tweet your question. So if you use the Lightning Tools Twitter account, which is @LightningTools, make sure you're following us and then post your question, and I'll be sure to read that out as well towards the end. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to Agnes.
Thank you, Brett, for the warm welcome, and welcome everyone. My name is Agnes Molnar. I live in Budapest, Hungary, and today I am going to talk about a very exciting topic, connecting external content to SharePoint search. And I am very excited about this topic because, as you know, SharePoint is never an isolated system. It's a part of a big enterprise organization, every case, with many, many other systems. And you have to know that SharePoint search can be connected to those systems, and you can search for information from other systems using SharePoint search as well. So today I am going to show you some ways how you can do this, how you can customize, and how you can unify the search experience, and some best practices on the journey towards this goal. You can follow me on Twitter @SearchExplained, and as Brett said, if you have any questions, just let us know and raise your hand or tweet your question, and I'm going to answer them at the end of this webinar. So first of all, let me start with the three most important processes in search. The first process is crawling, content processing, and indexing, and it's a very, very important process, if not the most important one, because this is the one which is responsible to put the content into the search index. And once the content is in the search index, it can be searched for, it can be found, otherwise we cannot do anything. So SharePoint and the most important enterprise search engines all work based on a search index. So the content has to go to the search index first, and then we can work with them. There are some other search engines as well, of course, which can work even without a search index. For example, used by news agencies where we have much more information than we can process by a search index. But in case of SharePoint, of course, we don't have these capabilities, so we can use it for different enterprise use cases. The second process is between the users and the search index, so to speak. It is responsible for processing the query, presenting the results, and capturing the user interactions. And this process is responsible to provide the results, to provide the optimal results to the users. And of course, these processes this process also have to be enhanced and improved as much as possible to provide the best possible user experience. And last but not least, we have some processes for doing analytics on the user search behaviors, and also on the content, on the results, and based on those analytics we can improve and we can enhance search further. As I like saying, search is like gardening. It's a never-ending process. You always have something to do there, you always have something to improve, and you always have to find what to do next in order to have the best experience. Of course, today I am not going to talk about each of those processes. My focus is going to be on the first one, because today's topic is to connect external systems to SharePoint Search, and this is related to the first set of processes, crawling, content processing, and indexing external content into SharePoint Search. If I want to simplify this process, obviously this process is a very complex process, but if I want to simplify it, I can tell you that the first step is crawling the content, which means the engine gets connected to the content source. It enumerates all the items that has to be indexed and collects them. This is the step which is called crawling. The next step is content processing, when all the content that have been enumerated and collected by the crawler will be processed. This is the step where we extract all the important metadata of the content. This is the step when we import the body of the document, when we extract the body of the document. This is the step when we extract the security information, the permissions of the items. And this is when everything will be prepared to be indexed. And the last step is indexing the content. And during this step, all the prepared and processed content goes to the search index. So this is the point where we can start working with the content on the search side. Of course, there are many components involved into this story. On the left side, you can see the content sources and the data source systems with all the indexing processes and the local search index which we build. And on the right half of this picture, you can see all the other components which have to be utilized to improve the search experience based on the search index. And you will see that everything is based on metadata, so I cannot highlight the importance of having good metadata already in the content as much as possible. And also we can do some tricks to improve the metadata on the search site as well, but the goal is to have as good metadata on the search, on the content side as possible. Once we have the content in the search index, we can create query rules, we can create display templates and many other things. And once again, this is not the focus of this webinar. You can find a lot of information about this on my website and many other blogs as well. So today I am going to focus on this part, how to get connected to different data sources and how to utilize them for search in SharePoint. The first option is, of course, we can use business connectivity services beyond the out-of-the-box content sources. So definitely SharePoint can crawl SharePoint content itself out of the box. It can crawl websites, it can crawl different types of content, but when it comes to external content, when it comes to external content sources, we have to use either business connectivity services or we have to use custom connectors. First, let me talk about business connectivity services. Business connectivity services is an out-of-the-box feature in SharePoint, and it makes us possible to get connected to simple data sources and do several things with those data. When I say simple data sources, for example, we can connect to database tables. In my demonstration, you will see a SQL database with only one table which contains foods and nutritional information about those foods. I really hope nobody is hungry today because I'm going to talk about foods and we are going to search for foods and food ingredients a lot. So if you are hungry, right now go and grab something to eat, because you will be definitely hungry at by the end of this session. So in my case, as I said, I have a SQL database with a table which contains foods and nutritional information about food, calories, the fat, the carb and protein, and those kind of information. Obviously, the users cannot access this information directly because, as I said, it is stored in a database. So we need some user interface for this. Of course, we can have our custom application for this. As you probably have in your organization, you use databases for your custom applications, but at the same time, what we can do with business connectivity services, we can kind of import that data into external lists into SharePoint. And in this case, the user interface is SharePoint. Let me show you what I mean. Here is my virtual machine, and you can see here is my database with all the foods and the nutritional information. And I have created a very simple external data source in SharePoint on my SharePoint site, and you can see that I am connected to this database on SQL, and if I go here, I can see the very same information coming from my SQL database in SharePoint user interface. So this is a very simple thing. You can set it up very easily for simple data sources. The other thing we can do with those simple data sources via business connectivity services is we don't only can display the data, but of course we can crawl the data as well. So using the very same SQL database, I can use SharePoint to crawl, process, and index the same SQL database. So in my case, if I go back here, you can see that in my search service application, I do have 3 content sources, and one of them is a business connectivity services content source called nutritions, and it is connected to the SQL database. If I switch to this view, you can see that I have about 850 items in this content source, which I am able to search for. And just to show you how it works, let me search for cheese. And if I switch to this tab, you can see that those items are all coming from my database, and those are pre-formatted in the search results, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes how I do that. But basically, what we have done here was getting connected to the SQL database, crawl, process, and index it into our search index, and then we are able to search for it. How we've customized the user interface is the next step. I am going to show you that later. But obviously, this feature, having business connectivity services, has its pros and cons as well. The benefits are that it's easy to set up. As you saw, I haven't written any code. It's a totally no-code solution. I just used SharePoint Designer to create an external connection and an external list using business connectivity services, and it was all set up. The configuration for crawl is also very simple. If I go back to my content source and I open it up for you, you can see that I set it to be business connectivity services, and I selected the external data source, which is called foods in my case, and everything will be taken care of from this point. And also it's a big benefit that it is available out of the box, which means you don't have to install anything, you don't have to purchase a third-party solution, you just use it directly from SharePoint. The downside of using business connectivity services is that it has limited functionality, it has limited performance as well. As you saw, my database was very simple, and in use cases like this, it is perfect. But if you have a quite more complex database, it still can be used because you can use, of course, database tables for business connectivity services, but at the same time you can use database views. Therefore, you can use your own queries for business connectivity services. But if the database is getting more and more complex, using business connectivity services going to be more and more challenging. The security options are also limited, and I'm going to talk about security and privacy and search in a few minutes. This is one of the most important things in enterprise search. Because when we do web search on Google, for example, everything is public. We can see everything there, but in the enterprise, security and privacy and sensitivity of the information is critical. And you will see what options we have to take care of this. And of course, the types of the available data sources are also limited for business connectivity services. So I have connected to a SQL database. I can get connected to web service by using business connectivity services, but I cannot get connected to SAP database, for example, this way. So we have pros and cons. You have to evaluate if it's good in your case or not, or if it's good enough or not, or if you want to use this option or you are looking for something else. So now let me show you what other options we have. The next option is using search connectors. Search connectors are third-party solutions or custom solutions. You can write your own connector if you want as well. Those connectors utilize the search APIs in SharePoint. Therefore, you can add them as additional modules to your search. And where they work is between the crawler and the content, and they connect your crawler component to the content source. I'm going to show you how it looks like in just a second. But first of all, let's talk about the most common data sources when you need search connectors instead of using business connectivity services. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, SharePoint is never an isolated system in the enterprise. You have many different kinds of systems, and each of them probably has its own search solution or search feature inside the application. But in an organization, if you have to go to more applications to do your job when you are searching for something, it might be a big headache. If you have to open your CRM system and also your CMS system and your mailbox and portals, and everything is in a separate system, probably you have separate search features in each. Therefore, it takes a lot of time until you can collect all the information. And this is where SharePoint with the custom connectors can be of your help to connect everything to SharePoint search and then provide the capability to find everything from SharePoint. So the most common data sources I have seen during my experience are content management systems, for example, Documentum, Lotus Notes databases, HP Trim, or SAP. Each of them can be connected to SharePoint by using custom search connectors. Of course, business connectivity services is probably not enough if you want to connect them to SharePoint search. You can connect your CRM systems as well, like Microsoft Dynamics CRM, several collaboration platforms, enterprise portals like IBM WebSphere or Oracle Portal, your archiving systems, your mailboxes. It's very important to note that Microsoft Exchange public folders can be connected to SharePoint search out of the box, but Microsoft Exchange private mailboxes cannot. You have to use a custom solution for this. If you want to be able to search in the emails, in the private inboxes, in the private mailboxes, you have to use a custom solution for this. So, but it is possible, technically speaking, it is possible by using a custom mailbox connector to Microsoft Exchange. Of course, you can get connected to Lotus Notes mailboxes or I'm sorry, or any other email systems as well. Of course, you can use custom connectors for databases as well, including Microsoft SQL, Oracle databases, MySQL, just to name a few. If your database is big, if your database is complex, or if the security of your application on the top of your database is complex, it's better to use a custom connector rather than using a business connectivity service. And also it is possible to get connected to other search systems. In many cases, it is not a good practice to crawl everything into SharePoint search, but we can get connected to other search engines if they are available in your organization. We just federate those search results into SharePoint search. I'm not going to talk about this feature today, but this is called search federation. It has its own challenges. It is possible, but it is a totally different story. But it is definitely possible, and you have to know about it. So let me show you how it works. You are already familiar with this picture with all the crawling, content processing, and indexing process. And as I said, the search connectors are between the crawler and the content. As I said, they are connectors, and they connect the crawling component to the content sources APIs. Usually they use database access, they use web services, they use the standard APIs. It always depends on the connected system, how it is the easiest and best and optimal way to get connected to it. But from this point, as soon as the connection is established, and as soon as we are able to enumerate the items from the content source, the process is the very, very same. The crawler takes care of everything through the search connector, and then the content processor and the indexer does the very, very same as before. So this process is really the same, just we have to add some additional components in front of this process. What challenges we have when we connect to external systems using search? The first challenge is metadata, and I cannot highlight this enough. Metadata is one of the most important things to talk about when we consider search. Why? Even on the out-of-the-box user interface, we can see a lot of metadata. Actually, everything here is based on metadata. What you can see now is the out-of-the-box search user interface in SharePoint. On the left side, we can see the refinement panel, and everything here is metadata. Each refiner is a metadata. If we have this metadata available, we can create those refiners. If we don't have this metadata available, there is no way to create these refiners. We have to have this metadata available. The next thing is how we display the results themselves. And again, everything here is metadata, and you will see when I show you how to customize the user interface some examples here, but in this case basically the title is displayed, some excerpt of the document is displayed, and the URL of the document is displayed. Everything is metadata. If I want to display the author of the document, if I want to display the department, the project ID, or product ID, customer name, whatever, everything is metadata, and it is very, very important from findability perspective. On the hover panel, we can also display metadata, and in our queries and query rules, we also use metadata. Actually, when I enter my query, this query goes against the metadata that is stored in the search index, and in this case the body of the document is also considered to be a metadata, and the more metadata I know, the better search I can do, of course. So this is why metadata is so important. Even on the out-of-the-box user interface, I am going to show you some customized user interfaces in just a few moments, and you will see that why it is important when you want to do some customizations, and the more customizations you want to do, the more important metadata will be. And also, if you want to filter, if you want to order the items, if you want to organize the results into several pages, for example, on this what we can see 3 pages, everything, people, and reports. And each page contains a different set of results, and those result sets are filtered by some metadata. In everything, obviously, we display everything. In case of people, we display results which represent people in the search index. And in the reports, we display results which are represent reports in this case. I'm going to show you some additional examples when I'm switching to my demo in a few minutes. Besides having metadata, it is also important to mention that having consistent and quality metadata is really, really important. It's a must. Let me show you some example here. When we crawl a content source, every property in that content source becomes to be a crawled property in search. And each of those crawled property has its name based on the property name in the source system. In this case, you can see that we have project ID in the first 2 cases, but in the third one we have project number, and in the fourth one we have project NO. Each of those values, each of those properties represents the very same thing, the ID of the project. As an end user, obviously I don't care the system name in the backend system of this property. I just want to be able to see the project ID on the search result, or I want to be able to filter by it, I want to be able to query for it, I want to be able to use it as a search refiner, but I do not care the system name of it. This is why we have to unify all those metadata fields into one metadata field, and this is called mapping those crawled properties into one managed property, which is called project number in this case. And all the project ID properties, project MBR property, and project NO property will be mapped to the same project number property, and this project number property is the one which we can use on the search user interface. So whenever I use a metadata on the search user interface, first I have to prepare the manage property for this. In some cases it is a one-to-one mapping, but in many cases it is a many-to-one mapping. And also we can do one-to-many. In some cases it is also needed, but it's the most important thing to understand is that we have to manage our managed properties. We have to prepare our managed properties in order to be able to use them on search. Let me show you what I mean. So I already showed you my database table and my external list and also my content source definition. Now let me show you the search user interface. I was searching for cheese and I've got several results for cheese, and you can see that I have many data for each result. I can see the name of the food, blue cheese salad dressing in this case, for example, and I can see 6 different metadata here: measure, weight, calories, fat, carb, and protein. In the backend, if I go back to the search service application, I have to go to the search schema. And in the search schema, you can see that I do have crawled properties and managed properties. If I search for my managed properties, I had a managed property which is called food, for example. This food is the name of my food, in this case, blue cheese salad dressing, for example. Or the measure property is here. Or the fat, etc., etc. You can see that each of them are managed properties here. And each of those managed properties are mapped to a crawled property, which in this case a business connectivity crawled property. This is why it has this long name. If I wouldn't have those properties, those managed properties, I couldn't do this customization in the UI. Why? Because let me switch here. This is what I do. I display first the name of the food as the first level heading of the result. I display the measure, the weight, and the calories, and then I display the fat, the carb, and the protein. And then I can see this one. How it would look like out of the box, it's very ugly. If you want to see that, I can do that for you. Just 1 second. I am going to comment this part where I had this customization, and I am going to add back the out of the box one. Refresh the page. There you go. This is how it looks like out of the box. I am pretty sure you don't like it, so I am switching it back immediately. Once again, what I do here is I use managed properties to be displayed in the search results. And then I use, this is called a display template, which uses HTML and JavaScript to define how the results should look like. And this is how I can utilize it. I can use the metadata, but what I can use is only the managed properties, and the managed properties are the ones which I had to prepare for this purpose in this case. And as you can see, the hover panel in my case is not customized yet. I could do that, obviously. I could make it much nicer, but I just haven't done it yet in this environment. So this is what is the most important thing about metadata. First of all, you have to have metadata. Second, you have to have consistent and good quality metadata in order to have a good quality search. Otherwise, you have to use the out-of-the-box experience if you can use any, and it's in most cases it's just not enough. You could see how ugly it can be, and it's just useless. One more thing to mention, in many cases I am asked, what if I do have metadata but the quality of the metadata is not good? And usually what I say is having bad metadata can be even worse than having no metadata, but because it can mislead the users, because it can provide false results, it can provide false insights driven by search, and in many cases it is even worse than no results or no insights provided by the search application. The next thing to talk about is security. And actually, I have already mentioned that security is very, very important in search. And we are in a good situation because SharePoint takes care of the security trimming. Security trimming means that users can see only the results which they have access to. If they have permission to see something, they can find it if this item is in the search index. If they don't have permission to the item, they cannot see this. Of course, if we connect to external systems, the search connector has to take care of the permission mapping, how the permission can be stored in the search index. But from this point, SharePoint takes care of everything. As I said, this is really good. At the same time, we have to make sure that enterprise search doesn't give us security surprises or security incidents. What I mean by this? In many cases, I have seen this story in many cases during my experience, but one of the most painful one was an organization who was a financial organization I used to work with a couple of years ago, and they wanted to connect file shares to SharePoint Search, which is an easy story. File shares can be connected to SharePoint Search out of the box, so no third-party connectors, no custom connectors. We just had to use the out-of-the-box connectors of SharePoint. So we set up this connection to the file share, which file share was really huge. It contained millions of documents in a crazy wide and deep folder structure. So it had a lot of folders with many subfolders and subfolders of subfolders, you can imagine. So they had millions of documents. We crawled all those documents into SharePoint Search, and once the crawl was done, we were able to search in the documents. And the customer was very happy. They were very satisfied. We even had some small celebration celebrating that finally they are able to search in their files on this shared drive. But literally less than 2 days later, I've got a call from the very same customer, and they were yelling and screaming on me saying, hey, we can find everything and this is terrible. So what happened? Basically what happened was this. In this deep and very wide file structure, they had one Excel sheet somewhere deep in a sub folder. And technically speaking, this Excel sheet was public. It was available for everyone in the organization because they didn't set up its permission settings. And before that, before the crawling happened, nobody knew about this Excel sheet except the ones who had to work with it. Therefore, nobody found it, nobody opened it, nobody cared about it. But once we crawled it and once it was in the search index, people started to find it using search. What this file was, it was an Excel file. And in this Excel file, they stored all the salary information, cafeteria, company car, and everything about the managers. And the file name was management salaries. From this point, as soon as it was indexed by search, everyone who did a search for his or her manager's name, this Excel sheet management salaries was in the first 3 results immediately. Why? Because the name of the manager was in this file. And obviously it was a big pain point for this financial organization. They didn't want to share this Excel file with everyone. Therefore, we had to shut down search immediately. They started a project to clean up the permissions immediately on the whole file share and even on some additional file shares as well. And we were not able to crawl this file share again until they were done 6 months later. So it took a while. Obviously, they started to blame search for it, but technically speaking, it was not the bad of search. It was not the mistake made by search. Search just opened up this mistake. It just surfaced this mistake because the mistake was not setting up the permissions properly. So whenever you add a new content source to SharePoint or any other search engine, the conclusion is first set up the permissions correctly, please. Because if I don't have access to something, I cannot find that content. But if I do have access to something, I will be able to find it, even if I am not supposed to find it. So technically speaking, first do clean up the permission settings, and it is really important in enterprise search. Once again, enterprise search security is content security, and search itself is not a security leak. It just surfaces the security and permission issues in your organization, or can surface those kind of issues if you have any. And do test before you open up search for everyone. The next and last topic to talk about today is the user experience. So once we set up the connection to our external content source and we take care of the metadata and security, it is also important to talk about the user experience, because this is the face of search towards our users. So if they will like the user interface, they will keep using it. If they don't like the user interface, they stop using it. That's simple as is. First of all, let's talk about queries. Users have to know how to do queries, and we have to educate them. People tend to think that they know how to use search, but as soon as we make them sit in front of SharePoint search or Google or Bing or whatever, in many cases they are in a big trouble. It seems to be simple, but if I show you this table, you can see that how complex it is. We can use very complex syntax for entering our queries, for filtering properties, for filtering file types, for using wildcards, for using phrase searches. So it can be quite complex. How you can utilize it? First, you can set up some initial queries and query rules for your users. Second, you can teach your users. Don't worry, I am going to share my slides later on, so you can use this table for your reference. Of course, you can take screenshots right now if you want, but I am going to share it after my presentation, and it will be available for everyone. But what I wanted to highlight with this table is that queries seem to be simple, but they can be quite complex, and we have to help, we have to support, and also we have to educate our users to let them enter powerful queries into search. And also we can use some operators to combine separate queries all together. The next thing is definitely to display the results, and this is where the magic comes. I have already showed you this example when I was searching for cheese, and the out-of-the-box experience I've got for search results coming from my database were really, really ugly. Instead of this, doing some customizations, I prefer to have this experience on the right side, which is clear, which is very easy to overview as an end user, and which provides me all the information and all the insights I need when I want to find something. I can do the same, and I am going to do the same with the out-of-the-box search results coming from SharePoint, where I store my own recipes. And out of the box, it looks like something like this picture that you can see right now. And after the customizations, it can be look like this one. And let me show you one more example related to my foods, but might be quite useful. Let me, okay, now you can see this. In many cases, displaying documents and people in a custom way is also very useful and can be very handy. So you can use it. You can find the way how to customize the look and feel of your documents in the search results on my blog if you want. But what I am going to show you now is this experience, how you can change the out-of-the-box experience into something like this in my food example. So let me show you. I have already showed you my database and how it looks like. I do have a SharePoint site. You can see it's a separate site which contains several recipes, some in English, some in Hungarian, with many pictures and additional metadata. Those metadata are category, style, diet, and of course the ingredients and the instructions, how you can do this recipe. And I am also connected to an external website via an out-of-the-box website connector in SharePoint. And those are the three content sources I am working with. So the first is my database, which is an external content source. The second one is this website, which is also an external content source, but a different type. And the third one is this out-of-the-box SharePoint content type, where I use the out-of-the-box connector in SharePoint. And you can see that I do have those three content types here. All right, so my query is cheese. I am searching for cheese. And if I go to the online recipes, you can see that the out-of-the-box experience here is not really nice. And also if I go to the out-of-the-box recipes, which are my recipes coming from the SharePoint site, well, they are quite ugly as well. So what to do here? I already edited this page a little bit and defined a custom display template which should be used here, and this display template is called recipes. And what I do here is I use this display template, and in this case this display template contains the out-of-the-box settings for everything. So I am just rendering the result as is. If I want to modify this, and once again I am talking about the out-of-the-box SharePoint recipes in this case, I do have a title property, which is the title of the recipe. In my case, if I go back to the SharePoint recipe book, you can see this is the title. The recipe has an image. It has recipe category, recipe style, and recipe diet. And if I go back to my display template, first I am going to display the title of this recipe and commenting out everything else for now. If I go back to my search page, let me refresh it, and you can see the title of the recipe is displayed here as a heading 1, right? So the trick here, what I am doing here is, here I do have the recipe image URL, recipe style, recipe category, and recipe diet, and the instructions here. And I am going to display these a little bit formatted into a table, and I don't need the out-of-the-box rendering anymore. I am saving my display template here, refreshing the page, and immediately I can see the title as a heading 1, the picture of the food, and the style. In this case, the style and diet are empty properties. I can see this is a main dish. The second one is a side dish, and I can see a short instructions as well. Of course, I could customize the hover panel a similar way here. I was focusing on the results themselves to provide you some experience here. Last but not least, I want to show you how to customize the refinement panel, because I still use the out-of-the-box refinement here. And obviously, this is not what I need in my recipe search. So I am going to edit the refinement panel here, and there is a button here to choose refiners. And if I scroll down, you can see I do have recipe category, recipe diet, and recipe style here. I am removing the out-of-the-box properties and moving the style up to the top, and I am adding some friendly display name to these properties. Once again, it is very important to highlight that although I am doing this for the out-of-the-box SharePoint content source now, the process for doing this for everything else is the same. So you can see I do have the style, the category, and the diet here now. If I would like to see Asian food, I can see 3 Asian recipes here. The same could be done here for the nutrition values. Once again, this process and everything you do after the crawling step, everything is the very same. You have to work with metadata, you have to prepare the manage properties to be able to use them, to be able to display them, to be able to set them as refiners, and then you can have this user-friendly experience in your organization, no matter where the content comes from. The challenge is how to get connected and how to extract the useful information and how to work with the metadata in your organization. So this is what I wanted to show you today. I really would like to say thank you for attending this webinar. I hope I provided some useful information. If you liked it, just let me know. Also, if you don't like it, also let me know. I appreciate your feedback. You can see some URLs on the screen now, some additional resources. What I would like to highlight is that I am doing a 2-day workshop in Amsterdam in about 2 months from now. If you go to my website, searchexplain.com/roadshow, you can find some additional information or the topics to be covered and everything. Everyone who attended this webinar, I would like to offer 25% off for about a week from now. So if you use the code Lightning Tools when you register, you can get 25% discount, and I would be really happy to see you in Amsterdam. Now it's time to ask your questions. If you have any, I am more than happy to help you with anything. Thank you very much.
So I think one question from me, Agnes, is the bacon pie. How do we make that?
Which one, Brett? Sorry?
The bacon pie, that looks absolutely fantastic.
The bacon pie. This is actually a very simple thing. I can share you the whole recipe. Basically, you put the bacon on your pot, on the bottom of your pot. You put potatoes and cheese and everything you like inside, and also you put bacon on the top, and you put it into the oven and bake it.
Fantastic. I'll certainly have a crack at that. So yeah, if anybody else,
I am going to tweet the recipe.
Wonderful. So if anybody else has any questions, remember you can raise your hand. So just use the go to webinar software to raise your hand, and I'll be able to unmute you. So it looks like we already have one question ready to go. This is from Chuck Hewson. So Chuck, I'm going to unmute you now. Hi, Chuck.
Yeah, how do we get the PowerPoint for the presentation?
Okay.
I think, Brett, you have, yes, I think, Brett, you have the list of attendees, so probably the best is if I send it to you and you can share it to the attendees, but I am going to also tweet it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so the webinar has also been recorded and will be hosted upon the Lightning Tools website later on this evening. But yeah, I'll also mail a link to that to everybody along with a link to the slides once Agnes has posted those up. So.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay. Anybody else for a question? Yeah, we have Rick Hahn. So Rick, I'm going to unmute you now. Hi, Rick.
I was wondering, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I was wondering how you did the out-of-the-box data connection to the SQL. We didn't see, I think you just said something about SharePoint Designer.
Yes. Just let me go back to SharePoint Designer here. So SharePoint Designer is, there are many other tools, and I am pretty sure that Brett could talk about this much more. The simplest way in this simple case is I use SharePoint Designer. I have created an external content type, and this external content type is using a connection. When you define your external content type, you have to define the connection, and this is a SQL Server connection. It could be an Oracle server, it could be a web service as well. And once the external content type is created, you can create an external list here using that external content type. And once you create your external list, then you are able to display those items here. It is important to mention that you do not have to create an external list to be able to connect to search. What you need in search is the data connection itself and nothing else, because once you create the content source, let me do this. So I'm going to create a new content source now, demo content source for you, and if I select line of business data as a content source type here, you can see business connectivity service is selected here. I can use this service application, and I can select the data sources here. I have only one data source defined here, but from this point I am going to click OK on the bottom of this page, and once it's done, I can crawl the data from here. The core is to create a business data connectivity service application, create your connection, and based on that connection you are able to search, you are able to crawl the content into search, or you are able to create an external list to display the data on SharePoint if you want.
And then how did you create the SharePoint list to have the data in it?
The SharePoint list is created, there are different ways. I use SharePoint Designer here, and I created an external list here. If you click on external list, you can select the external content type here, and if you click OK, the external list is created for you here as well, or you can do the same from the user interface in SharePoint as well in your browser.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Rick.
Yep, thank you very much, Rick. So we have another question as well from Franz Winter. So Franz, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Franz. I'm not hearing you yet, Franz.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can now. Yep.
Okay, now I want to ask, what's the role of Lightning tools in this case, connecting external content?
Okay, so I guess that's a question for me. So yeah, with Lightning Tools, everything that Agnes has shown is independent of Lightning Tools. This is really an educational thing for our subscribers on our website. But just to, I guess, elaborate how we might be able to help as well, Agnes kind of pointed you in the right direction just a moment ago. Using SharePoint Designer, you can connect to an external content, you can create an external content type to Microsoft SQL. One of the things that we provide, if you do use SQL or other data sources like SAP or Oracle, Salesforce.com, things like that, our tool called BCS MetaMan would be able to help you create an external content type without code for those external data sources as well. So yeah, really that's the, I guess the only link between searching external content and Lightning Tools is the fact that we could help you create external content types. But yeah, that's not the purpose of the webinar. So, okay, no problem. I hope that helps. Okay, I don't see any other raised hands, so I think that's all the questions for now. I just want to yet again just say thank you very much, Agnes, for providing the webinar. It's really informative, and thank you to everybody for attending.
Thank you, Brett, and thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.